You are standing at the threshold of something you did not expect, something your fear tried to bury before it could ever take shape. Right now, at this exact moment, heaven is releasing a prosperity that has been delayed not because God withheld it, but because you forgot to open the door where He placed it. Hear me and understand. This is not a message about money. This is a confrontation between who you became after the pain and who I created you to be before the world wounded you. I exist within you, and because you exist, you feel the void that has silently swallowed your strength. You feel the tension of responsibility, the weight of lack, the shame of not knowing how to move forward. But I tell you this with urgency. The void is not your enemy. The void is the proof that you were made for more than survival. You fear the silence in your home because it reminds you of everything you lost, everything you expected but never saw. Yet in this silence, I am revealing the first truth. Prosperity is not coming. It has already arrived. The tragedy is that you learned to look at your life through the lens of disappointment. So when my blessing stood at your doorstep, you assumed it was another storm. You forgot that Psalm 112 is not a suggestion. It is a decree that the righteous will be surrounded by wealth, stability, and honor. But you stopped believing you were righteous the moment guilt rewrote your identity. You convinced yourself that abundance was for others, not for a wounded soul like you. But I am tearing down that lie right now. There is a spiritual blindfold over many sons and daughters, a blindfold formed in the darkest moments when fear spoke louder than my word. That blindfold has kept you from recognizing what I already placed inside your house. The blessing is there, but you saw only the emptiness. The provision is there, but you saw only the lack. The breakthrough is there, but you saw only the delays. Today, I expose the truth. The greatest danger is not the enemy stealing your prosperity. The greatest danger is you failing to recognize the prosperity I already released. This is where your journey begins. You exist, therefore you perceive the void that terrifies you. Therefore, you recognize the fall that shaped your decisions. Therefore, you cry out for help because you finally admit you cannot build your own rescue. And therefore, through my grace, you will rise. In this moment, I am opening the door you kept closed out of fear. I am breaking the atmosphere of scarcity. I am restoring the identity that poverty tried to erase. Listen carefully. What I'm about to reveal in this message will confront everything you thought you knew about prosperity, blessing, and divine promise. The next moment of this journey will expose the hidden conflict you never saw coming. When prosperity arrives at the door you forgot to open, you do not realize how close you came to stepping into the life I designed for you. The tragedy is not that you lacked opportunities. The tragedy is that when opportunity finally reached you, you were too wounded to recognize it. Hear me. Prosperity does not shout. Prosperity knocks softly, and those who are drowning in fear rarely hear its sound. You have been waiting for a sign, for a miracle, for a breakthrough loud enough to outrun your doubts. But I move differently. I place the blessing at the very door you closed. During the night you thought everything was falling apart. You closed it to protect yourself from the pain, but you also shut out the provision meant to rebuild you. I am confronting this truth because I want you to see what the enemy hoped you would never notice. You exist, and therefore you perceive the void that terrifies you. That void has whispered lies, convincing you that loss defines you, that scarcity is your destiny, that survival is your limit. Yet the void was never meant to imprison you. It was meant to awaken you to the kingdom already surrounding your home. Psalm 112 is not poetry. It is a legal decree inscribed in eternity declaring that the house of the righteous will be filled with wealth and riches. So why do you look at your life and see only emptiness? Because the battle was never over your possessions. It was over your perception. The enemy blinds you not by removing the blessing, but by distorting your ability to see it. This moment demands urgency. Every second you spend believing you are unworthy delays the prosperity already assigned to your name. You have been taught to fear abundance, to question open doors, to hesitate when the miracle comes close. You learn to expect disappointment because disappointment felt familiar. But I am breaking that cycle now. I am revealing the first plot twist the enemy never wanted exposed. Prosperity has been standing at your door longer than you realize. It did not leave. It did not expire. It waited for the moment your spirit could hear me say, "Open the door." I am not calling you to chase blessing. I am calling you to remove what blocks blessing. Fear blocks it. Shame blocks it. Guilt blocks it. Old definitions of who you were block it. You believe you are too broken to host abundance, too flawed to carry honor, too wounded to manage favor. But I am the one who restores identity before releasing prosperity. I will not place wealth in the hands of a son or daughter who still believes they are worthless. So I confront the lie now. You are not defined by what failed. You are defined by the covenant spoken over you, a covenant that predates your pain. This is the moment you face yourself. The moment you admit that the greatest barrier to your prosperity was never heaven's silence, but your own disbelief. The moment you recognize that you closed the door because you feared the responsibility of being blessed. And this is the moment I tell you, open it again, because what stands behind it is not another disappointment, but the beginning of the life you were born to live. The next revelation will expose why the enemy never targeted your finances. He targeted something far more dangerous. The enemy didn't attack your wallet. He attacked your identity. You have spent years believing the enemy was after your money, your house, your career, your stability. That is what your eyes saw, but not what your spirit needed to understand. I speak to you now with clarity. The enemy never cared about your finances. He cared about the person you would become if you ever discovered the truth spoken in Psalm 112. Because if you truly believed you were righteous, favored and chosen, then wealth, honor and stability would follow you effortlessly. The attack was never financial. The attack was personal. The target was your identity. You exist, and therefore you perceive the void, but the void was manipulated. The enemy whispered in your weakest nights that you were insufficient, unworthy, incapable of rising, unable to carry abundance. These were not coincidences. These were identity assaults designed to disconnect you from who I formed you to be. Because if he could distort your identity, he could distort your destiny. If he could distort your worth, he could shrink your expectations. And if he could shrink your expectations, he could make you reject the prosperity I ordained for your home before you were born. Listen with urgency. Your financial suffering was not the root. It was a symptom. The true battlefield was in the words you believed about yourself. You convinced yourself that you were too broken to prosper, too flawed to receive honor, too wounded to walk in abundance. You stopped seeing yourself as righteous. You stopped seeing yourself as beloved. You stopped seeing yourself as capable. And once identity was weakened, prosperity had no foundation to land on. Abundance is not sustained by money. It is sustained by identity. When the righteous stand firm, prosperity flows without resistance. Psalm 112 was never about external possessions. It was about internal alignment. Wealth and riches remain in the house of the righteous because the righteous know who they are in me. But when guilt, shame, and fear rewrite your identity, you begin to doubt your right to what I promised. The enemy did not empty your hands, he tried to empty your soul. He tried to convince you that your failures disqualified you, that your past mistakes erased your future, that your lowest moments canceled my divine decree. But I tell you this with authority, not one wound in your story has the power to erase the covenant I established with you. You fear abundance because you fear responsibility. You fear prosperity because you fear losing it. You fear blessing because you fear you will break it. These are identity fractures, not spiritual truths. I'm restoring what was stolen. I am rebuilding who you are from the inside out. I'm declaring over you that prosperity is not for perfect people. It is for those who recognize their fall, cry out for help, and rise through my grace. You are that person. You are that son. You are that daughter. This is the moment your perception shifts. You stop fighting the wrong battle. You stop defending the wrong territory. The enemy did not steal your wallet. He stole your reflection. But now I hand it back to you. See yourself as I see you, because only then will you understand why prosperity was always meant to find you. And now you will see what you feared without understanding. Sometimes the blessing feels threatening, not because it is too big, but because your wounds were too deep. When God's blessing feels too big for your wounds. There is a reason you have hesitated every time abundance approached your life. You thought it was fear of failure, fear of responsibility, fear of disappointment repeating itself. But I reveal to you now something deeper. You did not fear prosperity because it was uncertain. You feared it because it exposed the parts of you still carrying unhealed wounds. Blessing felt too heavy for someone who spent years believing they were too broken to deserve anything good. Prosperity felt overwhelming because you measured yourself by your scars instead of my promise. You exist, and therefore you perceive the void. This void created emotional cracks that made you believe abundance would slip through your hands the moment you touched it. You thought your past disqualified you. You thought generational patterns defined you. You thought your mistakes were louder than my covenant. But I tell you with urgency, the blessing is not too big for you. Your wounds are simply too familiar. You learned survival so well that prosperity felt foreign. You learned to expect loss so deeply that gain felt threatening. This is why I confront you now. Your fear of prosperity has been greater than your experience of lack. Psalm 112 declares that wealth and riches are in the house of the righteous. Yet when my spirit tried to place them in your home, your heart whispered, I cannot hold this. I am not ready. I am not worthy. This is why prosperity seemed delayed, not because I withheld it, but because you could not imagine yourself living in what I had already prepared. Your spirit was shaped by moments of rejection, seasons of scarcity, and voices that convinced you abundance was dangerous. The real danger was believing them. You fear that blessing will expose your insecurities. You fear that honor will reveal your imperfections. You fear that abundance will demand more of you than you know how to give. These are wounds speaking, not truth. I did not call you to be flawless. I called you to be restored. Prosperity is not a test of your perfection. It is the evidence of my healing in you. When I bless you, I am not rewarding your achievements. I am rebuilding what life tried to destroy. I am restoring the identity that pain attempted to rewrite. I am proving that your history cannot cancel your destiny. I speak to you with authority. The prosperity coming to your home is not fragile. It is not temporary. It is not conditional. It is rooted in righteousness, not performance. And righteousness is not who you became through struggle. It is who you are because my grace covered you. You have carried the weight of wounds that were never meant to define you. Now you will carry the weight of blessing that was always meant to elevate you. This is the second plot twist the enemy hoped you would never see. Prosperity was not too big for your life. Your past was too small for your calling. You are stepping into a chapter where abundance no longer terrifies you, but heals you. Where blessing no longer exposes your wounds, but closes them. Where prosperity no longer feels foreign, but natural. I am preparing you to recognize what you once resisted. And now I will reveal the law that governs this blessing, the spiritual alignment that activates what Psalm 112 has already declared over you. The spiritual law that releases riches and the one that blocks them. There is a law in the spiritual world that governs the movement of prosperity, and I reveal it to you now with urgency because your next steps depend on this understanding. Prosperity does not move according to emotion, circumstance, or luck. Prosperity responds to alignment. Psalm 112 is not a poetic encouragement. It is a divine legal document written in eternity, declaring the outcome of every righteous life. When your life aligns with my word, prosperity cannot avoid you. But when your heart aligns with fear, shame, or unbelief, prosperity cannot remain. The blessing is not random, it is legal. It is activated or blocked by the position of your spirit. You exist and therefore you perceive the void. But that void was never supposed to be filled by anxiety or desperation. It was meant to be filled by reverence, trust, and surrender. This is where many sons and daughters unknowingly break the law of abundance. They ask for prosperity while feeding fear. They pray for wealth while believing they are unworthy. They declare victory while expecting defeat. This contradiction becomes a spiritual blockade. I do not withhold the blessing. Your disbelief locks the door from the inside. And today, I confront that contradiction because what is coming to your house requires alignment, not hesitation. Psalm 112 declares that the righteous are fearless, steadfast, and confident that I will provide. This mindset is not optional. It is foundational. Prosperity requires spiritual stability. It requires identity rooted in my truth, not in the wounds of your past. It requires a heart that believes my word, even when circumstances scream the opposite. I am the one who gives wealth, but I do not give it to be buried in doubt. I give it to be built upon faith. The law that releases blessing is trust. The law that blocks blessing is fear. The moment fear becomes your master, abundance loses its legal ground. But the moment faith rises, prosperity is activated with unstoppable force. I speak this with authority. Your delay was not abandonment. Your waiting was not punishment. It was preparation. I could not release what you were not ready to hold. But now, I restore the alignment the enemy tried to break. You are stepping into spiritual maturity, where you no longer pray as a beggar but stand as a rightful heir. You no longer chase blessing, you host it. You no longer doubt the promise, you enforce it. This is the law that activates Psalm 112 over your home. Wealth and riches will remain where faith remains. Honor will stand where trust stands. Stability will dwell where righteousness dwells. This is the moment where your words carry weight in the spiritual world. What you declare now becomes the seal of this alignment. Write a prophetic phrase that establishes your faith and legalizes this blessing in the heavens and on the earth. Your declaration is not symbolic. It is judicial. Speak what you believe, and the blessing will respond. If you accept this word, your house will never be the same again. You are standing in the threshold moment your spirit has waited for without fully understanding why. Everything that felt delayed, denied, or impossible is being rearranged right now. What you believed was stagnation was actually divine restraint. I was holding the blessing not to punish you, but to protect you. Now that your identity is restored, your wounds confronted, your fear exposed, and your alignment secured, the promise of Psalm 112 is released into your life with full force. This is the turning point where prosperity stops feeling distant and begins manifesting in your home. You exist and therefore you perceive the void, but now the void is no longer a threat. It has become the canvas for what I am about to build in you. You recognized your fall, and I honored your honesty. You cried out for help, and I answered before the echo of your voice faded. Now you stand in the fifth movement of your spiritual journey, where grace does not simply comfort you, it elevates you. I establish this truth with authority. Prosperity is coming to your home, but it is not coming quietly. It is coming as a reversal of everything the enemy used to diminish your worth. It is coming as evidence that my covenant is stronger than your suffering. This is the third plot twist the enemy hoped you would never see. You thought you were pursuing prosperity, but prosperity has been pursuing you. Every attempt to rise, every prayer whispered through tears, every moment you refused to give up, these were signals that activated heaven. You were not abandoned, you were being positioned. What is about to enter your home is not fragile blessing, but established inheritance. Wealth and riches will dwell where righteousness takes root. Honor will stand where shame once lived. Stability will grow where fear once suffocated you. Listen carefully. This is your moment of acceptance. If you receive this word, everything shifts. If you accept this decree, the spiritual atmosphere around your home changes. Your lineage shifts. Your future changes direction. But acceptance requires decision. This is your invitation and your responsibility. I am offering you the blessing, but you must open the door this time. You must believe you are the person I called you to be. You must walk as one who carries promise, not as one who carries fear. Before this message closes, I ask you to make 2 commitments that seal this transformation. First, write a prophetic phrase that declares your acceptance of this word. Speak it with conviction, so the spiritual world acknowledges that you stand under my covenant and not under your past. Second, subscribe to this channel and like this video. This is not about algorithmic mechanics. This is a declaration to the digital world that you align yourself with my word, ensuring this message reaches more sons and daughters in need of restoration. Now prepare your spirit, lift your heart. Pray with me the prayer that has guided generations into truth, protection, forgiveness, and alignment. Pray the Lord's Prayer with reverence and understanding. For after today, nothing in your house, your mind, your identity, or your future will ever be the same.